Welcome back here today in room 171, otherwise known as Studio B, right here on the beautiful campus of Florida Panhandle Technical College. Another in our series of talking to artists, photographers, people who are creators, taking a little bit closer look at the talent we have in this area, and over time having some really compelling conversation with just exactly those people. Today, we've got Calvin Pate. Calvin has been a student here at Florida Panhandle Technical College over the last several years, has actually availed himself of several of our programs. When we come back, we're going to talk to Calvin about his time in digital video technology as well as television production technology, both classes that I had the opportunity to teach Calvin over the last few years. And as I say, when we come back, we're going to look a little bit more closely at those offerings and perhaps why you should or maybe shouldn't take a closer look for your own use within those programs. We'll be right back. Welcome back here in room 171. As I mentioned, we're with Calvin Pate. Thanks so much for taking the time. I know that you are actually in school today. So the good news is that you're going to be featured in this interview. The bad news is you're still going to have to catch up with your schoolwork when we get done with the interview in the studio here. But by now you know what the Grinch is all about and what exactly to expect from me. Is that not correct?
Pretty close.
I mentioned in the tease coming into the show, Calvin, that you have taken several of the programs here on campus. Your dad is a retired military, and you were able to avail yourself of the VA, which is a wonderful use of those monies. Thank you for your service as being part of a service family. But in our case, I met you because you wanted to come to the digital video technology program. You only attended because your mom wanted to come and become a photographer. Tell us how that worked out.
Well, back whenever I was finishing up my first course, I informed my both parents, that if there was any class they desired to take, while I still had the time to, I would take it with them. And to my surprise, she remembered.
Careful what you offer.
Indeed. So then we started coming here. I mean, fortunately enough, in my family, military family, I was used to some amount of pressure, so that was quite helpful.
Well, you came to the digital video technology program, even though photography, as you stated, was the subject that your mom and subsequently you were interested in. And as you know, certainly by now, after being with me for a couple of years, the photography makes up the bedrock of all of what we do. Even our drone program is based in photography because that's what we use drones for, as a shooting platform for photo and video. You took digital video technology, a 900-hour course, so that you could finish it in a year comfortably, and you graduated last year. Just as you thought you were going to be able to get away, I offered, asked, cajoled, shamed you into coming back for the television production program. Talk a little bit about those programs in general. They both are really similar, obviously. But talk a little bit about those programs and maybe some of the challenges.
If we're talking about challenges, the first one that you will encounter is the fact that you do not know what you're talking about. Or at least in my case. Where you think it's simple as of point and click and you figure out the first day. That is really not the case.
There's a lot to photography.
Indeed. You figure out that timeliness is something that you, or at least in my case, I was severely lacking on.
What do you mean by timeliness?
In general, working at a pace that you are expected to.
You're talking about completion of project.
Yes, sir. Quite bluntly, I think it's fair to say that I'm still working on that to a good extent. There's more than that, you've got to be able to deal with actually, I guess you could say, taking credit for whether it is good or bad, which I guess you could say a lot of people aren't exactly used to.
Well, coming out of a K-12 school, or as an adult, being away from school for a while, your remembrance of school is probably not the best to start with. But on top of that, the government school, our public school system, everybody gets a trophy typically. You're not really held to task in large part, and due in large part to No Child Left Behind. We simply don't keep people or students back a year like they did when I was in school. It was not unusual when I was a kid to have one or two people in the class that were a year or two older than everybody else because they were held back once or twice for good reason, and they caught up, and so they were a couple years older, but they at least had all the material down. Nowadays, they don't do that. You just shuffled along, regardless of where you end up in the queue, and if you're the worst student, you probably end up being a worse student the following year and the following year, and you never get out of that rut. My thoughts, I don't know that this is what their line of thinking is, but it doesn't work out the best for my program because I expect my students to come in with a rudimentary mathematics ability, reading, writing, reading comprehension, a vocabulary, and so forth, or at least the ability to have a work ethic so they can get caught up on those things. And most students certainly do. It takes a little bit of effort, maybe over the last few, or the first few weeks of school, because it's a different environment. So which of those things did you find the hardest? You mentioned the completion dates, the timeliness of things. Were those the worst parts of it, or were there things that gave you a fit even more so?
Believe it or not, one of the hardest parts of the program for me was something completely unrelated to the things that I have mentioned so far. For me, it was the fact that there was no set in stone right answer. Because, as you mentioned, I have taken numerous courses. All of them had basically correct or incorrect. I guess you could say your class did one of the worst things it can do for a person. It gave me options.
Well, we say very often that photography is art and science. You were used to taking science courses, science-based courses, mechanics, machining, metalworking, high tolerance situations that you can't get close enough. It has to be right on the money for it to operate properly. IT, information technology, drafting, any of these sciences, it has to be exact. Photography, you can get to a certain place multiple different ways. And so if you've got three parts of the exposure triangle, you can manipulate any of those to be completely different as long as you do the same with the others and end up with the same product. So the art part of it, notwithstanding the fact that, in your opinion, if you took that picture in a blurry fashion on purpose because you wanted it to be blurry, and I say, well, that's terrible, you're actually correct and not me because you did it on purpose and you wanted the photo to look like that. So there's not a lot of science in the outcome of photography. There's a science in how to get to the point that you want. And as long as you are able to consciously achieve a result, it doesn't matter what that result is. Jackson Pollock was an artist that took buckets of paint and threw them at a canvas, and they sold for millions of dollars. And people, regaled him as an artist. I never got it. I just figured he threw buckets of paint at a canvas. But if you can convince somebody that what you do is art and get paid for it, then more power to you. So I can understand where that having a choice could be a detriment at times.
Indeed, it was just, I guess you could say it has taken me a long time to acclimate to that. And as of yet, there are still times where I notice that I guess you could say I fall short of keeping the open mindset required. Which, looking for things that are absolutely too, I guess you could say, too spec per se. And hereby, I think that also causes part of my timeliness issues at times because I'm like, no, this has to be right. No, this has to be.
Yeah, well, I can see where you could drive yourself crazy. Trying to make something that's not there, and to demand answers when there is no, what you point out, correct answer. What's one of the things that you did get out of our program? You've become a really decent photographer. You could certainly are proficient at video production. You could work in television. You could work in radio. You could work in any kind of photography that you wanted to in your couple of years here. What is something that you felt that you accomplished above and beyond the technicalities of photography, videography, and so forth?
Now, well, clearly, as you may know, I lean towards more of the still pictures more than anything else, simply because I guess you could say that that's easy enough for me. It is point and click once you get used to the settings. But I'm things that I excel in. I personally believe that as it's working with the hardware in general. So because most of the classes that I've worked with have required me working with hardware. So I, in general, I guess you could say I work with my hands well. Tools, whether it be tripods or a wrench, or basically,
Gotcha. Well, for what it's worth, I appreciate you having been a student of the program. I appreciate even more the fact that you accepted my invitation to stay on for an additional period of time to finish up the television production. You've been a joy to have in the class, and we'll have another exit interview before the end of the school year. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to thank you for what you brought to the table, and hopefully you have achieved knowledge that you'll be able to use for the rest of your life in some fashion.
I thank you for extending the offer because, quite simply put, there doesn't necessarily go a day by that I do not learn something, and especially this year, that something gets brought up that, I don't know, it finally quake in a completely blue eye.
That never stops. Even at my age, I have that happen every single day. So you'll never have it all. And maybe half of that stuff I knew and forgot. And every day's a new day when you get to a certain age, But again, thank you. And thanks for taking the time to discuss this. I think that it's important for people who are interested in the class to be able to see some of the positive and negative parts of the class, to hear through your words the reasons that they maybe should or should not be a part of this class. So thank you for all of that.
And thank you.
Our guest today is Calvin Pate, digital video technology and television production technology, a couple of pretty intense, in-depth photo, video, audio programs, offerings right here at Florida Panhandle Technical College. We have over 25 degree and certification programs here. Financial aid is available if you have VA or if you qualify for Pell financial aid. Most of our programs are totally free of charge to the student, and highly recommend that if you've got any interest at all that you check us out, check our website, give us a call, or stop by. Maybe we have something that you are or aren't looking for. We'll be right back.